This is a continuation of the Durdle Door watercolour, where the previous layer that granulated has dried and granulated reasonably well. I've made a mixture of ochre and cadmium yellow, a little bit of ultramarine. Put some alcohol and water in this solution. This is where grass and rock overlap, and there is a mixture of a sort of rocky outcrops amongst grass, and the texture, difficult to describe, but it's very much crisscross and fragmented. So you've got grassy pockets and larger outcrops of rock, and I'm going for the bigger shapes first. So I've got these belts of grass going across here, which I've got some drawing guidelines for. I use a stippling sort of movement to try and leave out the grey from underneath to suggest rocks. Little bits of gaps. And then this really quite small scale marks to indicate the rock outcrop. And there's another gap, the big gap there. And more smaller, I suppose, grass growing in the cracks and fissures of the rocks. There seems to be a vertical movement to this pattern, a vertical emphasis on this pattern. I had a background happening here. I didn't think it would matter so much because I'll be working into this rocky structure. You can see there are some bits that I need to lift out there. So down by the tidal mark here, there's a darker colour to come in on top. And then there's these lit areas of rock. And then also grass growing on rock. This is to some extent an organised scribble of this mixture of ochre, cadmium yellow and a little ultramarine. So towards the headland there is less grass and more rock. And this does resemble, difficult to say what it resembles, cheese, muesli, little bits of things, some larger scale, some smaller scale. Hopefully this won't dry so light, if it's a little bit overloaded with colour. So gradually, the further I go that way, there's less grass and less vegetation growing in the rocks. I zoom out of that for a minute. So I'm looking at vegetation coming across, something like that. Difficult to get the colour density right. That should have been a bit denser on some of these areas. So as well as there being that green colour coming across, and there perhaps will be more of the green colour over there, there is a darker colour along the tide line, ultramarine ochre and crimson, a little bit of alcohol in the water, in the solution as well. So there is a dark edge through here, where the rock looks almost black. Go for a slightly denser mix. So controlling the brush, controlling the solution on the brush. By getting rid of excess water. There is a bit of a dark edge along the water, sea. So gradually that greeny colour has dried, and this is then possible to go elsewhere on this rock with the descriptions of shadow, darker areas. Around the door, for example, here there's a darker edge. These are all abstract shapes, and it's difficult to say what, if any, there's any sort of consistent shape behind this, because there isn't. They're all different scale of rock, different scale of gap. Because there's colour here already, it's always a good thing to work on dry. I try and work back into wet with this. It's liable to dissolve the colour underneath. This is quite a big area of shadow. So I'm going to continue working in this way into the rock and let that dry, then move on to the left hand side of the image.